Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me at this Your Overseas Home webinar and choosing to take the next step towards buying a property in Portugal. My name is Rosie Bradley and I'm a senior copywriter here at Your Overseas Home. Today I'm delighted to be chatting to Sofia Vicente from Matt Law about the key legal step. Oh, is that right? Yeah, the key legal steps to follow and mistakes to avoid when buying a property in Portugal. Could you just pop yourself on mute, Sophia? Just we'll take turns.
Yeah, I am unmuted, Rosie. Thank you very much. It is our absolute pleasure to be here and be able to speak to all you guys, and hopefully try to make the decision of buying either an holiday home or a family home in Portugal very much easier.
Oh.
I am an associate lawyer at Matt Law. Our areas of expertise include the real estate investments, of course, relocation processes, and the most varied things around the investment itself, renting properties, and etc.
Lovely, thank you. We'll open the floor up to questions. This webinar is largely going to follow a Q&A format. So if you do have any questions as we go along, just pop them in the chat function. It's just on your right hand side. And we do hope to answer as many of your questions as we can. But if we don't get round to them all, don't worry, we'll send them over to Sophia and her team at Matt Law. So just before we get started, I know we've got quite a few viewers on here, and we just wanted to get an idea of what you're buying. So, is it a holiday home, a forever home? So, just let us know in the comments, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so we'll start with something quite basic. Sophia, can you outline the basic buying process for buying a holiday home in Portugal?
Yes, of course. The process to buy a property in Portugal majorly consists in obviously deciding what kind of investment you want to make, the budget, the vehicle of investment you will make, and then start searching for locations, for property itself, make some views, have contacts with real estate agents. Of course, they also help a lot in the process of choosing the property, choosing the area, because they are very well acquainted with them. And then it will consist of making an offer. Usually you can sign a letter of intent, or sometimes a reservation agreement. But the main three steps that we usually deal with when buying a property is making a due diligence, either before or during the promissory contract timeline. Then, of course, having signed a promissory contract assures the position of the buyer immensely. And the last step would be to sign the deed.
Okay, cool. And once the deed is signed, I assume it's hand over the keys.
Yeah, they hand over the keys. When the clients are not in Portugal, we usually keep the keys with ourselves, or if they rather, the agent keep the keys so that the clients can pick them up once they arrive in Portugal. Or, for example, if they're renting out through the agent, they sometimes keep the keys and deal with the management around it.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And is that process the same for those buying, let's say, an investment property or a home to relocate to?
The process itself, it's majorly the same. The most differences that you'll find will be sometimes when making, for example, when going through a financing process, the terms of the financing will be different from main habitation, your forever home, or a secondary one like an holiday home. And also the taxes that the government asks you to pay when buying are also a little bit lower for family homes than for holiday homes.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is, are there any common mistakes that holiday home buyers typically tend to make in Portugal?
I believe that the main issues that can happen when they're buying in Portugal, or the common mistakes, I would say the one that happens the most sometimes, it's that they don't settle like a definite budget or a definite vehicle of investment before searching for houses, so it's harder to pick one when you are not sure of how much you want to spend, because besides the property purchase, you have other costs that you need to have into account, such as I was saying, the taxes and the costs surrounding buying the property, notary fees, registration fees, legal fees. These all shall be taken into consideration. Besides that, a common issue that usually happens related to the vehicle of investment would be, for example, trying to buy a property depending on a sales proceeding of an overbroad property without having it assured before. So as it is quite clear how it can mess up a little bit on the process, but it happens a lot more than one would think. Another thing that it's not quite a mistake or an issue, but something to consider is, for example, if you are making an investment and from the beginning you know that you want to give the property to your children or your grandchildren or whatever, you can make an inheritance planning when making the purchase. And for example, also trying to avoid major taxation on, for example, inheritance tax in the UK when that's the case. So we would say, if that's your plan, then why not buying in your children's name and reserve the use of the property for yourself, because that's a registered right, and you will already avoid that issue.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Thank you. And do I need a lawyer to buy in Portugal? And if so, when is the best time to get in touch?
Well, it's not mandatory, so I need to be I need to be true to that. But if it's very much easier, I would say so. And you'll be much more assured of your rights, of everything going according to plan, and also be rest assured in your houses, in your work environments, because you have someone that you can trust, that can do everything on your behalf, sign everything on your behalf, and all you need to do is pick up the keys when you want and come to Portugal to enjoy the sunny weather.
Yeah, that definitely sounds good.
When to contact the lawyer, I would say before signing any type of agreement. As I said, it can be a letter of intent or a reservation agreement. If you have made an offer and if that has been accepted or is in process of being accepted, for example, just waiting for the letter of intent to be signed, I would say get in touch with a lawyer and explain the situation. Right. Oh, I made this offer, the property, it's this one, there are certain conditions of the deal. They are asking me to sign the letter of intent. Should I do it? Is there any red flags that I should be aware? Just let me know, help me a little bit around here, just to make sure that you're on the safe side.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that, because I've been updating our buying in Portugal guide, and that's exactly what I put. Reach out before you sign. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, because if you sign it first, then
It's
the
harder to
damage
go
can
back
be already
on.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Just before we go on to the next question, I'm seeing quite a few questions come in on the similar topic. So you mentioned one of the potential pitfalls was not understanding the extra fees that you might have to pay. Do you think you'll be able to give like a percentage, an average percentage of how much those fees would come to?
Of course. To be on the safe side, the percentage that I always inform the clients or prospective clients would be like an additional 10% to
Okay.
include every costs.
Okay. That's helpful.
Okay.
hmm
Yeah. Hope so.
Thanks. Okay. And for holiday home buyers, how long can you spend in Portugal before you're officially a tax resident?
Well, that's also an important question, Rosie, because we have had the experience to talk with some investors that misunderstand the being a homeowner and an entitled to residency,
hmm
because it's not the same. Owning a property in Portugal doesn't grant you residency rights. So either you own a property or not, the time of stay allowed in Portugal is the same. So you'll be allowed to be in the Schengen area, where Portugal is within, through 90 days in every 180 period days.
Okay.
So that's the deadline that you need to be aware of.
hmm Okay.
But for example, if you can deal with, let's say, you can deal with the house hunting on a week or 2 weeks, and then make the offers and etc. already abroad, and then you contact a lawyer, and we can do everything overseas for you. Then you'll still have like 80 or 90 or 85 days to enjoy your house afterwards.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. And is that done through power of attorney?
Yeah, through power of attorney.
Okay. Fab. Where am I up to? I know a lot of holiday homeowners let out their property in Portugal when they're not living there. How easy is
Mhm.
that to do management-wise?
Okay, so until very recently, the local lodging licensing was much open than it is now. So we had a little bit of a limitation on granting new licenses to short-term rentals, which have made the process of renting for shorter periods quite difficult than it was before then.
Okay.
But you always have long-term rentals.
hmm
Sometimes there are specific terms in which you can reduce the long-term rents periods, which are usually 1 year. But for example, if you are renting to university students, to um, digital nomads, right now it's a new justification to reduce the rental time. So I would say it's quite easy if you have the right connections or networks. That's why I said that sometimes when you work with the real estate agents to get you someone to rent out the property, then the
hmm
process is very smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's definitely about who you know.
Yeah, it is, especially when you are investing abroad to somewhere that you don't know anyone, and you guys also help a lot with that because you give knowledge to lawyers, to real estate agents, and good ones that we also work with. So I believe that's a major good point for anyone who is looking out.
Fabulous. Thank you. And what is the rental market like in Portugal at the moment? I know you said it's a little bit harder for short term, but are there people still looking for long-term lets?
Yes, yes, yes. There's always people looking for long-term rents. And for example, if you are investing and even though we call it a holiday home, you know that for like 1 or 2 years you have your kids in school or something, and you want to rent out a property and make it an investment because you can buy it now and have someone paying for your property or at least part of it during the time that you will not be using it. So that's a good thing. There's always someone looking for a rental property.
That's very good to know. And I know you said something about residency and how having a property doesn't entitle you to residency, but do you need a visa to buy a property in Portugal?
No, you don't. You
No.
don't need anything besides a Portuguese tax number and the funds, or a mean to obtain the funds. So
Okay. So you only need a visa when you want to stay, like live there long
exactly.
term, right?
Besides, exactly. When you want to stay in Portugal or again, it is a visa granted for the Schengen area, so not only Portugal will count for the 90 days. Only if you want to stay within Portugal or the area more than the 90 days over any 180, that's on the only time that you need to start looking for a visa. But do it prior to it, because the process can take a little longer.
Okay, that's good to know. Where am I up to? Do I need to have private health insurance to live in Portugal on a visa?
No, you don't. Most of us do, even the Portuguese residents and the Portuguese nationals, just to easen up the process sometimes when you have an urgency or something like that. But Portugal has available the national health number, the national health care, which, being a resident, you are entitled to be registered within and access
Okay.
any public hospital. And even before you have it, if you have an emergency, I don't acknowledge any hospital to close the doors to anyone. So
No. And so are you entitled to that immediately, or is it after a certain amount of time?
no, it's immediately. As soon as you become a Portuguese tax resident, and we also are used to register our clients after having the residency card, you just get in touch with the national center within your residency area, and they will issue you the card, the number, as soon as you present the required documents.
Okay, lovely, thank you. We're getting quite a lot of questions in, so I'll start reading through them.
Go ahead.
We've got quite a lot of people looking for a holiday home. Sophie's looking to buy a farm, which is lovely. Andre, hope I've said that right. He's asking, do you think it's better to buy a property or rent?
It depends on your perspective over the property. For example, we have lots of clients when wanting to relocate, that because they don't know the country so well, or because they want to make a forever investment, let's call it like that, prior to becoming a resident and spending more time in Portugal, they rather rent it out for like 1 year or 2 years and then start looking for a forever home. So
Okay,
I would say it depends on your main goals.
that makes sense. Russell's asking, what happens if you have used up your 3-month residence allowance? I think by that he means the 90-day rule. So what happens if you've used it up and you don't buy a property?
Well, we don't know anyone that that have been deported, but of course you need to be aware that there are risks with the foreign control when like going outside of the country or trying to re-enter your own country. And I believe that would be the main risk, would
Okay.
be to have some kind of issues. I don't believe anyone will be in jail or anything for it. Just like be aware that it's a legal requirement, and
Yeah.
if you're on the faulty side, just be careful.
Do you think, like, if you did overstay that, if you then in the future went to apply for a visa, do you think that would affect your application?
Well, I don't think so. At least we don't have that kind of experience, and we also don't have the experience of having like the customs or even the borders control, like counting the days and saying, no, no, you entered 91 days ago, so now you need to be fined or you'll have a criminal record. I don't think that will be the case.
Okay, that's good to know. And what kind of legal protections are there for property buyers in Portugal?
Well, any property buyer will benefit from the legal protections, the same ones as any of us do, because as we said, you'll be a taxpayer. You'll have a Portuguese identification through that taxpayer number, and your rights will be the same. You have the same access to courts, or any kind of legal assistance.
Okay. I know here in the UK, it's like it pretty much goes without saying that you get a survey done when you buy a house. Is that the same in Portugal, or is that kind of unheard of?
Well, sometimes it happens. It also depends if you're buying like an off-plan property or
Mhm.
an older property. It's up to the buyer. Actually, we always advise to when you're not buying like an off-plan. And even when buying an off-plan, if the construction is already majorly done or etc., it's still advisable because you're making an investment and you want to know what you're investing in. So let's say they are saying they tell you that you're buying like top construction, like the structure itself, and then there goes an engineering saying that's not quite feasible. Like the roof can go up to your head in 6 months.
Mhm.
Well, that's not ideal, no.
That's good. Okay. And you mentioned I can't remember what it's called. Is it an NIE number in Portugal, or is that somewhere else? The tax number.
National the national health number
It's
or
sort
the
of like
NIF,
NIF,
the
yeah.
fiscal number.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
NIF.
how do you get
Yeah.
that?
Well, the NIF is asked by before the tax office. The tax office. We
Mhm.
also, when we are contacted through a client that doesn't hold one, we insert that kind of service within the buying process in
Okay.
our fees, and we contact the legal authorities. When you're a non-resident, you are obliged to have a fiscal representative in Portugal.
Okay.
So that we receive your tax office letters. For example, if you buy a property, you will have the annual property tax, which will be received by your fiscal representative, and then we get in touch, make the payments, and deal with everything.
Okay. And what happens on the legal side if, heaven forbid, a sale falls through?
Okay, so when you have depends on the reason to which the sale falls through. The deposits in Portugal are paid in a different scenario that is the most common one in the UK because it's not through an escrow. It's what we called a non-refundable deposit. But of course, if there is a party that is in fault, you will be entitled to be reimbursed.
Okay.
And it's very important that the contract states so. It is a legal regulation. It's in the common one. Like even if it wasn't on the contract, you would be assured by it, but then you'll have to go through an entire court process to have your deposit back. So let's say your vendor falls out of the deal just because they had a new buyer that was paying like 10K more than you do. Well, so if you have a contract that states, well, if for some reason the vendor terminates the contract without a legitimate reason,
Mhm.
then he will be entitled to reimburse you of the deposit, or if it's in his fault, as for the example that I gave, you'll be entitled of the double of the deposit.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully it doesn't happen to anyone, but Sophia's there if
Yeah,
you
but
need her.
when it does, we have notifications sent to the vendors, and worst case scenario, if they still don't refund it, we already had court actions where we have to demand to be reimbursed of the deposit amount
Mhm.
that have gone through, and then you just need to enforce the court decision.
Okay, thanks. Okay,
You're very much
there's still
welcome.
more questions coming in, so I'd better crack on. Niren's asking, we're planning on buying a property in a complex in the Algarve. We've been advised
Mhm.
that apartment fees are 18,000 per year, and that's for like, let me just find it, condominium fees.
Condominium,
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
So 100 year would give like quick math. So you would pay like 67 euros per month for the maintenance of the common parts of the building. That is common when you have an apartment unit. You will have common areas such as the hallways, elevators when they exist, pools, gardens, rooftops, the exterior paintings, etc.
Mhm.
And all homeowners make a payment monthly,
Mhm.
depending, and the amount can change depending on the dimension of the property. A bigger apartment will pay more condominium fees than a smaller apartment.
Mhm.
But I would say in an apartment unit in Algarve, 67 euros is not very much.
Okay. I think she said it was 18,000 a year or
Oh, 18.
1,500
Okay.
a month. But she said,
Well,
does
that
that
will,
seem high?
well, quite a bit. But it also depends on the kind of management they offer,
Mhm.
because we have lots of homeowners in especially apartment units in Algarve, whereby there's like bars, golf courts,
Oh yeah, like gyms.
yeah,
Mhm.
and they even provide like towels for the apartments and etc. Like it's like if you were in an hotel, you know.
Yeah.
So usually you have a management contract where it states how much do you pay and for what are you paying. So
Mhm.
it can be reasonable.
Okay. So that would typically be like resort living.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, cool. Sounds nice. um, okay, John has asked, can you outline the process to get a permit to rent in the Algarve? And do you think this could be problematic?
The process too. Sorry, Rosie.
Get a rental permit?
Oh, like a short-term rental license
I think he means to like let out his own property. Is that right, John?
to make. I believe so, but for any reason, I'll make like the two differences. To make long-term rentals, you don't need a specific license. What it will be is registered before the tax office, where you'll be the landlord, and when filing your annual tax returns, you will be taxed by before the said income that you receive from the rentals. You don't need a specific license to do that. You
Okay.
have a property that can be rented because it's a secondary home, as we call it. You rent it out, you receive income, and then you'll be taxed accordingly in your annual tax return, which will have deductible expenses and all things considered. In the short-term rentals, you will need to obtain a license, a local lodging one, and the granting will differ from town hall to town hall. You'll have like basic requirements in security requirements, for example, having a fire extinguisher, a complaints book. And for the time being, in some of the areas, namely in Algarve, no new licenses are being issued so far
Oh, okay.
for apartment units. If you're buying a townhouse, a villa, uh, you can obtain the license anyway.
Okay. Is
I
there a
hope this
reason why?
clarifies that one way or the other. Well, yeah, it was a ministry decision late last year, whereby due to the real estate inflation and the prices of the property becoming very high and having lots of properties owned by foreigners, which our prime minister thought weren't making the right use of the property and
Mhm.
taking rights of habitation to the Portuguese people, which, by the way, the majority of us and the ones who work with real estate investments don't agree with. So he tried to reduce the issuance of new licenses to avoid these kind of issues.
Okay.
Let's see if the new prime minister changes anything, but for now, this is what we have.
Okay. Is that the May Habitat? I can't pronounce it.
Mm.
Is it?
Mais
Is that the
habitação.
law?
Yes, it's within
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I speak French, not Portuguese, so sorry.
No, it's okay. And we have some accents in the words that are very quite difficult for almost everyone to resign. It's okay.
Thank you. Okay, Bridget's asking. Oh, sorry. Where am I up to? Do I need to open a bank account in Portugal to be able to get a tax number?
No, you're not.
No.
You only need to have a personal ID, a fiscal representative, And that's about it.
Okay, and just to confirm, you would be able to be that fiscal representative?
Yes. Yes, we provide fiscal representation for all our clients that invest in Portugal. Even the ones who want to relocate, until they do, they still need representation. So it's completely within the scope of services for the year that they buy.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks. Michael's asking, I think this might be to do with the law we just mentioned. He says he has family in the US owning Airbnbs, and wants to transition to do the same in Portugal. And he's asking, is it a similar process?
I believe he's meaning like someone in Portugal already has a license and they are thinking about transfer the license to one name to another.
I think
Because
no,
if it
no. I
is a
think
license in the US, it's not the same. So it's not transferable from the US to Portugal.
I think it's more that they already let Airbnbs in America,
Yeah.
and now they want to do it in Portugal.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, within the Airbnb app and their terms and etc., I
Mhm.
believe you'll be able to rent out both in the US and in Portugal, but the issuance of the license is made by the Portuguese authorities, so it is not granted by the Airbnb platform.
Mhm. Okay, sounds good. Philippe says, if I'm renting out the property, what, at least in general terms, are the taxes on that? Like, what kind of taxes do you have to pay, basically?
Well, when you're buying the property and filling out the annual tax return, you'll have to have a Portuguese accountant do that for you. It is an income, a Portuguese income, and because the property is located here, that will be taxed in Portugal. The tax rates will vary with the amount of income that you have. Okay, but it's a rental income. It's not. I can't say if it will be very high or not because depending on the deductible expenses, for example, when you are paying a management company, the utilities for the house sometimes are paid by the landlords, even if the contracts are in the landlord's names, even if paid by the tenants.
Mhm.
So all of that takes into account when calculating the tax payment.
Okay. And is it a flat tax, or is it different per?
It's different per the global income that you declare in your annual tax return.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin is asking, thank you for clarifying, Kevin, by the way. Ireland, he has an Irish/EU passport, and Ireland
Mhm.
isn't in the Schengen area. So he's
Mhm.
asking, are Irish citizens able to stay in Portugal longer than 90 days without a visa?
Formally, the 90 days will not be, even if they stay longer than the 90 days, there is no border control because it will be considered a EU passport.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
The same way that the residency rights are acquired through a different way than the non-EU nationals.
Okay. So it's
So bottom line, general scenarios, you can stay longer than the 90 days in Portugal.
okay. It's good to know. Where are we up to? Kevin's asking, does Portugal offer any tax incentive to homeowners who rent out rooms? Sort of like, you know how you have like a house share? Is there any
Yeah,
tax incentive
I
for that?
think I'm understanding. With the Mais Habitação program, this has been discussed, but no a specific incentive has been ruled into yet.
Okay.
But it's a perspective that it exists.
Hmm.
It's still not quite being carried out.
Okay.
Hopefully, it will.
Hmm. And on a similar note, I know a lot of people like to buy new builds for holiday homes in Portugal. So is there any tax incentive there if you're buying new?
Like an off-plan property, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah, exactly.
No, the tax incentives are majorly focused on buying a family home or an holiday home. because the taxes will be lower. What will exist will be the annual tax return that I referred to. When buying new, you may be exempt of paying the said tax, but also depends on whether you're investing for a holiday home or not.
Okay, thanks.
You're very much welcome.
Lovely. Okay, next question is from Ethan. He's asking, how complex is it to transfer a property in Portugal to a corporate entity, that be in Portugal or abroad?
Okay, so firstly, to have a company being the owner of the property, it will always have to have a registration in Portugal, the company, even if it's the simplest one will be registering a foreign company to just own the said property in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
So making this registration, and afterwards you can make the transfer either through um, the the payment of a purchase price agreed with the company, even if it's within sometimes the shareholders and the company itself. Because, for example, if I don't recall the name of the gentleman that made the question, but if he's the owner and he's also shareholder of the property and he wants to make the transfer, um, they can make it anyway.
Okay. And would there be an increase in tax if you did that?
It will depend on the purchase price at the time at that the individual bought the property, and the price or the patrimonial value of the property to be considered when the transfer is made, because the individual person can be entitled to pay capital gains tax if there is an increased gain.
Okay.
If not, you'll.
Okay, that sounds good. And let me have a look at my questions. And how is property inheritance managed under Portuguese law?
What do you mean property inheritance?
So,
Like if your fathers own a property and then unfortunately they die and you inherit it. Okay, so what happens is it's a free donation. Let's talk it like that. So what usually happens is that you need to make the probate
okay.
to declare yourselves or any siblings or etc as the heir of the property, and
Mhm.
then we make a deed whereby you become the property owner and make the registration, which usually is made out of charges, out of taxes.
Mhm.
Worst case scenario, what you will have to buy will be the same capital gain
Okay.
over the patrimonial value that the tax office entitles the property.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you. I know it's quite complicated in Italy, so I always like to ask that question. Okay, we're very quickly getting to the end of our time. Thank you, Sophia, for your insightful tips and advice. We've got a few more questions pinging in, so we've got 1 minute. I'll give you one more.
Okay, that's good.
Sir Gibb has asked, we've heard that it keeps popping down. We've heard that bureaucracy in Portugal is extreme for European standards. Is there any truth to this?
Well, the bureaucracy to acquire a property, I don't think it's the worst one, but anything related to city councils, licenses, visas, processes, it can be quite difficult and time consuming, yes.
Okay, lovely.
And
Thank you.
we don't like to sweeten the deal, you know. We also like to work with the worst case scenario and then have our clients being very much happier in the end if it's quicker.
Yeah, definitely. It's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So thank you so much. That's about all we've got time for. We strongly recommend that you do get in touch with Matt Law and Sophia's team directly, and she'll be able to discuss your requirements in detail. and we'll be in touch with their details shortly if you did wish to reach out. Before we finish, I would love to invite you to leave us a review on Trustpilot if you found this webinar helpful at all. And thank you again, Sophia, for joining me this afternoon, and good luck
Thank
to
you,
all of
guys.
our...
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, and good luck with your property purchases. Goodbye.
Bye.